it's early in the process. So for anybody out there that hasn't been following this, because it's still early in the week, and again, there's a lot going on, especially if you're a diehard NFL fan. You got more than enough things, basketball and football, to preoccupy yourself with. So, what's going on there with Hendrick and some potential penalties?
Yeah, so there's a couple this week. They're not announced at the time of the show, so if you're watching this later in the week and you're like, what are these guys talking about? It's because it's Tuesday morning or early afternoon. It hasn't been announced yet. So Hendrick on Friday, before practice, NASCAR was just kind of doing random inspections in the garage, and those louvers, which is the little slits you see in the hood of the car. Sometimes you look real close, there's like the little slits.
Okay.
Basically, I can describe them. So that's a piece that slides into the hood. Well, NASCAR didn't like the way Hendricks felt. They pulled him out and like, I don't know if I like this. We're taking him. They took him across the board on all 4 cars, and because that's a stock part. I don't know the exact manufacturer, so I don't want to butcher it, but that's a piece of this next gen. There's a lot of pieces to it that, hey, this is outsourced. This is coming from X company, and you're just to take it, open the box, put it on the car. Don't touch it other than that. Well, I think NASCAR feels that Hendrick manipulated it, and they didn't deny that they manipulated. The wording I have here from Jeff Gordon, that is, that NASCAR, a lot of times it takes a tip probably from somebody in the garage, and like, hey, you guys should go look at this. So NASCAR did, and we don't like these. So they took them. They took all four cars. So here's another one in its place. And Jeff Gordon, and what he said, and this is a quote, every situation is sort of unique, but this is more unique one than I've seen in a while, where there's been a lot of communication back and forth on this particular part, especially for this racetrack, because they did a parity test in the wind tunnel. I think it really opened up the door for some miscommunication. I don't want to go any further than that. We'll continue to share the facts and be transparent with NASCAR as we have been so far. So that tells me if you're innocent and didn't touch it, you had different wording. So they touched it. So people I've talked to have said, yes, they manipulated the part, but they didn't manipulate it for an advantage. They manipulated it because these parts sometimes are not coming to fit. So think of it like a puzzle. And you got a puzzle piece and it goes here, and it goes here.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fit.
Yeah. Isn't it supposed to fit?
It's supposed to fit, but sometimes this manufacturer could have gotten a little slightly wrong dimensions or something.
So aren't they supposed to tell them, well, look, it's not fitting, give us another part?
Yes, and I'm wondering, and hence his miscommunication, if they didn't tell NASCAR.
On purpose?
Yes, and they were like, well, let's cut the edges of this and force it, thinking they're working, hey, look, they gave us the part, we've got to make it fit. So that's where this comes up, because last year, so NASCAR made a precedent last year. Don't touch these parts, or we're going to rule with the iron fist. Kozlowski coming into the Atlanta race, or after the Atlanta race last year, what happened to them is they had some bumper damage. But remember, the parts were limited. They were struggling to get parts last year because of the supply chain issue. So they fixed the part and put it back on. So it was kind of altered. NASCAR noticed it and like, well, we don't have another rear end for this car. We just kind of had to fix what we had. And they're like, you can't touch it. That's a 4-race suspension for your crew chief, $100,000 fine, 100-point differential.
Okay.
Big penalty.
Yeah.
So Gibbs cars, when you go to Pocono last year, they remember the DQs for the top 2 finishers, and they handed the win to Chase, not even leading the lap.
Yeah.
Well, Denny Hamlin
that helped out for people who won that week or lost that week. Yeah.
Yep. So Hamlin mentioned that was the front end of the car. He goes, that was a wrap. We didn't touch the part. We just added a little bit of the wrap to help. Yes, it helped, but that we didn't touch a part. And we got disqualified and lost crew chiefs.
Yeah.
And then Michael McDowell, they had a manipulated part. So they set the precedence. So an L2 penalty at the very minimum should be a 75 lost points for the driver and or team owner, 10 playoff points, 4-race suspension, and a $100,000 fine.
4-race suspension for who?
That would be the crew chief.
Okay.
So this is where we're getting on precedent here. There's also an L3, which you could fall under that too, which is a 120-point loss. 25 playoff points is basically 5 race wins. That's a massive. And if you look at the loss of 10 playoff points, William Byron, basically you're taking both William Byron playoff points wins away. There's 10 playoff points for that. So playoff points are huge. If you get 25, you're basically taking 5 race wins. That's going to affect them in the playoffs. 6-race suspension and a $250,000 fine. But where this is a little bit different is you're talking about a whole organization. So you got to think whatever penalty comes out, if it's along the lines of that L2 or L3, Hendrick's going to appeal to at least get the crew chiefs there. But there's a very real chance that you could have all 4 crew chiefs gone for a month, which is massive with that in the playoff point. So in saying that, this is where the controversy comes, is they didn't really get an advantage by this because I think the stats go to show they took these parts away Friday before practice.
Okay.
So if you look at practice last week, Hendrick went I got it right here. 1-3 in practice, 1-3 in qualifying, 1-4 in the race, and they led 265 of 317 laps. So even taking the louvers away and giving them a new one to fit into that car, it didn't affect their speed. They were just as good as they were the week before in Vegas. So how do you penalize? What range do you go here? Because this is where I feel kind of bad for NASCAR in this decision here. You set the precedence for the penalty, but do you rule the iron fist when let's say it was truth. This part didn't fit. You gave me this part. It doesn't fit. I had to get it to fit. We can't show up to the track without it. So it didn't fit, and it never gave us an advantage for the way we did it.
Well, the first part, though, again, I'm NASCAR. You're pleading your case. Can I stop you there and go, well, why didn't you call?
That's where I would.
And have them FedEx more parts.
That's exactly right. Hey, look, because where you got to think, they probably tried it. I'll say this. I think they tried it to gain an advantage, and it probably proved that it wasn't an advantage one way or the other. I think maybe they did it to get an advantage.
Like they thought that, maybe we could
circumvent
this.
And then you get it taken away, and they notice, hey, look, it didn't matter anyways.
Yeah.
But
that can't go. That's not going to work.
And I think that's probably what they were thinking. Let's not tell NASCAR this might give us advantage, and to find out it didn't really give you an advantage. But their shop is not far from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. NASCAR's headquarters, the R&D centers in Charlotte. You could have made a phone call and said, look, these aren't fitting. Come take a look before we do something with it. Yeah. Work with us here, because I think that's going to be the smoking gun, per se. And I do think the precedence is already there, because, look, if you don't penalize them if I'm Gibbs or these other teams, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Is this a stock part from a different manufacturer? And the answer is yes. Did they modify it to fit the car? Yes. Isn't that part of the rule? You can't modify a part.
Yeah.
So so that tells you there's probably an unprecedented penalty coming for them.
Sounds like it.
Does that, you look at these playoffs, now it's depending, is it L2 or L3? L2 still is a loss of 10 playoff points, which Chase Elliott, not saying he has any playoff points.
He's in enough trouble as it is.
He's going to be a -10. Because you got to take him away. So it's like, now you're saying he could get a win to get in, but he's got to get 3 wins just to get 5 playoff points on the positive side for the playoffs. So this could be a massive penalty, historic almost, coming their way. And losing all 4 crew chiefs for a month,
it's got to happen. Yeah, it's got to happen, because to me it sounds like, when you hear these athletes that get busted for amphetamines or any kind of drug similar to that, and they always say, I didn't know, I was taking cold medication, or I was doing this, that, and the other thing. And the answer or my reply, if I'm on the side of if I'm the representing the company, I'm saying, just like you're saying there with the excuse if you could have called for another part, is if everybody knows nowadays, anytime you take a different medication or anything you put in your in your body, you must verify first.
Yep.
And if you don't verify first, don't come crying to me that you didn't know, because if you don't know that that's possible, that something is going to enter your body that you didn't even do any research on or check, that's not our fault. That's your fault.